Hi, guys. Welcome to the Melanated Way. I'm your host, Linda Antwi. We are doing an exclusive. We want to debunk the myth, talk about this latest sentencing with Geoffrey Paschel. And we've talked to Shelby before, Shelby Bart, before she has an inside look into the situation. What I do want to say, I know that this is a hot button topic. I know that a lot of people have different points of view, but what I want to ask you guys is to keep an open mind and let's talk about everything that we have questions about, and we will be able to fill in the gaps. That being said, I want to welcome Shelby Bart to our live stream. Hi, Shelby.
Hi.
Welcome back.
Thank you. Thanks for having me back.
Absolutely. You guys, thank you so much for watching on YouTube, wherever you're watching. I'll get all this stuff out of the way first and foremost, wherever you're watching on YouTube. Thank you, Patty, for the super chat. Super stickers are available. It helps makes all these shows possible. So I appreciate that. I appreciate the support. The other thing that I want to pop up real quick is this is a hot topic, and the Melanated Way will always stand by victims. And if you're in need, please go to thehotline.org, and I will pop that up throughout this stream. That being said, Shelby.
Hi.
I want to talk a little bit about your history with Geoffrey and why kind of you have an insider view to this whole situation. So a lot of people don't know who you are. So for those people that don't know who you are, let's talk about it.
Okay. Hi, Tammy. But I dated Geoffrey during March of 2020 until like January 2021. So basically while his season was airing and after and prior to this trial.
Yeah. So the last time we talked to you, you literally rocked our channel because we had no idea. So I had been following a little bit about who you were, but I had no idea that in the midst of Allison and Kristen, here's Shelby, and you changed your life and your livelihood to be with this person that you met and you thought was going to be in your future. So I wanted everyone to really kind of know that part of things.
Yeah. And if you follow Geoffrey, I mean, people probably recognize my name. One, I was a diehard defender of him in the beginning. And then he also has a live on his Instagram right now, solely dedicated to me. So
what's the live about?
Telling everyone that he has no clue who I am. He's never met me. I'm his stalker, that I'm stalking him, that, like he has no clue who I am. Never met me, none of that, because, he couldn't have that narrative going around that he was dating me while he was dating Varia, while he was everything else.
Right. But we've found so far, just watching this whole thing play out, that's kind of has been his stilo, right? So he has multiple women at multiple times. And for some reason, I find, and I don't know if this is to be true, but just my personal opinion, that a lot of you guys don't know about each other. And when you find out about each other, you're like, wait, what? Like, I thought I was engaged to this person. I thought I was dating this person. I thought I was in a long-term relationship with this person. And all of that is not true.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I had moved to the state,
Girl, when you told us that, like, I'm still not over it.
Yeah, I'm still not over it. And it's been a year.
I'm still not over it. So for those of you guys that don't know, and I can't remember, what's your original state, Shelby? Maryland. So she moved from Maryland to Tennessee to be closer to Geoffrey, pre this trial, pre the sentencing, all of that stuff. And again, I'll pop the link in the show below, but we were shook. We had no idea that that's what you did. Yes, Vanessa says, Shelby dropped a bomb on us. She sure did last time.
I swear, I thought you knew. I had like no idea.
Yeah, I had no idea. So let's go from the very beginning. So what I thought I would do is start with this little post. So as we all know, the other day, Geoffrey had a sentencing hearing. Varya has been a very strong supporter from day one of Geoffrey, her relationship with Geoffrey. I do want to dispel some of the myths, Shelby.
Okay.
So what's her status with Geoffrey? Is she engaged to him? Is she married to him? What are your thoughts on that?
So I can definitively say that they are not married. They
Mm-hmm.
legally can't be. He is still married to his third wife, Brittany. So there's no way they could legally be married. I mean, they could. He could have committed bigamy. And I mean, if that's the case, then rock on, that's another charge. But there's no way they legally could be. Now, did they have some sort of like ceremony, maybe when they were in Vegas or somewhere? Sure. But there's no legal marriage. No. So they may be engaged still. I don't know. I mean, yeah, I don't know about
So
that.
my understanding is that the trial itself, that he was traveling around the U.S. with her. They did end up in Vegas. They did end up doing a ceremony and getting married. So it's important to recognize the fact that he's still legally married to Brittany, and wherever that lands, that's where the confusion is.
Mm-hmm.
Now, she went ahead and posted this to her story saying they don't allow him to wear a suit, let the circus begin. And prior to that, she had reels that she did. And a lot of times people don't understand that for influencers and creatives on Instagram specifically, they are promoting reels. And so if you have an X amount of followers, they're saying, hey, listen, we want you to do reels in line with TikTok and we'll pay you. So anytime someone watches that reel, that creative influencer, blue check mark person is getting paid. So she went ahead and did this whole video reel where she was picking out an outfit for Geoffrey to wear, the suit that she wanted him to wear for his sentencing hearing. And lo and behold, that wasn't allowed. So that's what this picture is about, where she said, they don't allow him to wear a suit, let the circus begin. Do you want to speak on that a little bit?
Yeah, I mean, I last time I was a little hesitant to say certain stuff because it just wasn't over. But yeah, I mean, I don't follow her. I have her blocked on everything, and I'm sure if I didn't, she would have me blocked. But someone sent me the reel of her picking out the outfit, and my immediate reaction, I wasn't shocked. You know what I mean? Because if you look back at all of her reels dating from when he was convicted until now, because I believe she got monetized in that in between time, she likes the shock value. She's not dumb. She's smart. Like if a reel doesn't do well, the next one will be involving Geoffrey, involving Chasm, his son who passed away. Really just tasteful things for her to monetize, but it's all calculated. So when there was the reel about her picking out the outfit for him, totally tone deaf, all of that, but like that's par for the course for her. So I mean, there was a lot of parts to that reel that if you really wanted to go deep into it, you could say certain things mean certain things, like the socks from Canada. I'm of the belief that one of Geoffrey's diehard women that follow him, who's from Canada and always sends him stuff, sent him those socks. I'd have to think that. But, and I didn't even think of this, people DM'd me thinking that it was a jab at Brittany, who fled from the US to Canada with her two young sons to get away from Geoffrey. So even if that wasn't what she intended with it, that's how thoughtless she is, that she doesn't think about anything, but yet she wants to memorialize this child.
So let's talk about this a little bit, because I think that a lot of people may or may not understand this. So is it true that Geoffrey has 7 children with 4 different women? And that the mother of the child who passed away, Chasm, is the one that indeed fled to Canada. Is that correct?
So I know about more kids than 7. I think at this point 7 is like what he has. I think he like publicly claimed 5, and then as time went on, like if I know about 12, give or take.
12 kids with 4 different women?
More than 4 women. I at least know about 6.
12 kids with 6 women.
Yes. And that's been told to me. That's been confirmed by multiple people in his life that would know. Yeah. So I was shocked when the judge said 7, but also not shocked because, like he said, that's the image that Geoffrey has put out to everybody, or did put out to everybody.
Now, and I'm kind of going off our kind of topic a little bit, but I do want to talk about the children a little bit more. So it's my understanding, because I did have a couple of people that were at the courthouse the other day for the sentencing hearing, and my understanding that he had like 40 different character references that the judge referred to. And he said, I understand that these character references are here. And, I'm putting them into the court record. However, he wasn't going to go down and read all 40 of them. But I was told that some of his ex-wives were supporting him. Do you know that to be true?
No, that is not true at all. Not one ex-wife supported him. Okay. His mistress of 20 years supported him.
Who's the mistress of 20 years?
See, I don't want to be the jerk here because I have no clue if those children know the nature of their mother's relationship with him. And one of them is far old enough to see this and whatever. But she was in the front row. So, I mean, if you know who all the other players are,
yeah,
and one is mom. So you could probably deduce who that is.
All right, so let's get into it. Let's get into some of the different myths, some of the comments that both you and I have been dealing with since we were covering this trial. I've popped on the screen, 90-Day Fiancé star faces sentencing. What I will say before we move on, and I'm going to pop this banner on, is that all of this information, a lot of it is from courttv.com, and I'm sharing it under the Freedom of Information Act. So here we see Geoffrey's lawyer and Geoffrey in the courtroom on sentencing day. And the lawyer had a lot to say. Shelby, what were your thoughts on Geoffrey's lawyer?
I mean, I had a bad taste in my mouth from the trial, but during sentencing, the thing that I picked up on as, survivor of domestic violence myself is that he was heavily, heavily triggered by Kristen and Allison, and very triggered by them not letting him bowl them over. Mm-hmm. He kept getting angrier and angrier, so much so that the state, objected and said he's badgering, and the judge, you know what I mean? Like, he full on was completely inappropriate badgering, especially Allison. Very, very, I mean, I get he's doing his job, but like, that's not doing your job. You know what I mean? Like, you're not allowed to badger the witness. Yeah. So my feeling that I got from him, and I do not know this, I have no proof of this, but the gut feeling that I got was that, I mean, he seems like an abusive man to me, to get so triggered by these women. Mm-hmm. That's how I felt. You know what I mean? Like, anyway, but yeah, no, he's the top criminal defense attorney in Tennessee. Like, he's the guy that everybody goes for, and how that, I thought he was terrible. You know what I mean? Like, I thought he was awful. But at the same time, he had everything stacked against him. So I guess I mean, I don't know. I mean, I thought he was bad. What did you think?
I definitely felt that this was an attorney that wanted to grab the headlines. I think that he enjoyed hearing himself speak. I think that he was trying to give a rigorous defense, but like he said, he had a lot of things. Geoffrey's felony convictions in history behind him. So he was trying to do, in my opinion, the best that he can do given the circumstances and situation he's dealt with. I think that the other thing that is important to remember as we talk about this later is this is not Geoffrey's first rodeo in the criminal justice system. And a felony is a felony is a felony, in my opinion. And a lot of the comments, a lot of the DMs that I've been getting is that, oh, DV is different than drug charges, et cetera, et cetera. And I've said this before and I'll say it again. I think back in the 80s, the US criminal justice system had the 3-strike system. And it didn't matter what your 3rd strike was. You could steal a candy bar from a corner store. That was your 3rd strike. If your 1st strike was, I don't know, and I'm pulling this out of the air, but if your 1st strike was like felony robbery, your 2nd strike was like home invasion, your 3rd strike is you stole this chocolate bar from the corner store. Guess what? That's your 3rd strike, and that's done because you're a habitual offender. And I think that that's what the judge took into consideration. I think that that's what his attorney had to deal with when we were talking about enhanced sentencing. And I think that worldwide, a lot of people don't understand the US criminal justice system in regards to enhanced sentencing. And hence the reason why he got 18 years for this. Now, in my opinion, domestic violence, like I said, the melanated way will always stand with victims. Domestic violence is something that, tends to be swept under the rug, but it's a very serious issue, and you never know what's happening behind closed doors. And we always want to protect the victims, period. That being said, I wanted to go ahead and talk about a little bit about the courtroom setup. So here we see Kristen, Geoffrey literally turning his body away from what the judge was talking about. We see Varia in the front row. She's in pink and like a red or pink mask. The whole time from what I watched, and I watched from the beginning to end, she did not take her eyes off of Geoffrey. In the front row, you also see Mary, and you see like the neighbor or whatever. You see one of his children in the front row. You see his mom in the front row. And, I do also want to mention, because we did bring it up, that the white bag you see that's draped over that, what is it, like the fence thing? It's not a fence, but the wood thing.
Yeah,
That's the suit that Varia brought to court, thinking that Geoffrey would be able to change out of his prison stripes. Right. Yeah. And so that was the big deal she was making. And again, you guys, I really do want you to, as we go through this interview, I really do want you to put everything into perspective. So here we have this woman who is in a relationship with Geoffrey, who thinks that it's okay to make reels, monetize on those reels, and say, hey, listen, I'm picking out this outfit for Geoffrey on a very serious felony crime. And in her mind, in my opinion, right? So I don't know if it's true or not, but it's my opinion that she thought that this was not going to be anything. The sentencing was not going to be anything, Shelby, and that they would be able to switch the narrative. So now all of a sudden, because he's in a suit that she picked out, and she spent the night picking out, that would change the trajectory of what was going on at sentencing. So that's why I thought that this photo for you guys to see was important. And we see it again here. We see where Geoffrey again is turned away. His lawyer has stepped out for a minute. We see the prosecutor here, and we see all the major players in the courtroom. Now, Court TV, which is where I'm getting a lot of this information. And again, I want to go ahead and credit Court TV under the Freedom of Information Act. But Court TV went ahead and said on their YouTube page, Court Insider, the evidence phase of the hearing is closed. The state rested and the defense offers no proof. Which, Shelby, this is a big deal, right? So when Court TV is saying that the state has rested, right? So the state of Tennessee has rested, and Geoffrey's defense, the lawyer that we are now talking about, offered no proof. What are your thoughts on that?
I was a little confused at that point because we had already heard that there were some 40 letters of support for Geoffrey's side, and that would have been the time to introduce those.
Yeah.
So I was a little confused at that point. I wasn't sure what was happening with that, like if the judge said he didn't want to hear like what it was. But then I later learned, as you did in the closing, that that his attorney's slick. He's slick because he didn't introduce them here at this point, the evidence phase, because then they would have been subjected, I believe, and maybe I'm wrong, to the same thing that Allison and Kristen were, which was cross-examination, all of that. So there's 40 letters from people that I can guarantee you maybe a handful of them actually have met Geoffrey in person, know Geoffrey, and know him longer than his time on the show. The other 35 are Instagram friends. Probably at least 6 or 7 of them are Geoffrey's women, as we call them. And like the state representative from Florida that said he was, a nice, kind guy. That's his mom's doing. That was his mom's friend. I can promise you that she asked him to write a letter because his mother asked everybody to write letters on his behalf. So where you may have heard that the ex-wives wrote in letters of support, 100% false. But did his mother have the audacity to ask these women to write a letter of support for him? 100%.
Wow. So here we see on the screenshot that the judge has requested a recess to review the attorney's arguments and the law in reference to whether Paschel's prior felonies qualify as an enhancer. So let's talk about that a little bit. So you guys, what I think a lot of people don't understand, and what I know that you and I, Shelby, have gotten a ton of DMs and comments on our posts about on Instagram, is the fact that the criminal justice system in the United States, specifically Tennessee, has an enhancer, quote unquote, policy. And what that means is, for example, if I got in trouble with the criminal justice system as a first-time offender, I would be a first-time offender, and my sentencing would be more lenient than someone who has multiple offenses and convictions. Now, there's also a difference between a misdemeanor and a felony.
And a federal charge.
Yes. If you have a felony in the state of Tennessee, okay, and you have multiple felonies, when the judge is considering your sentence, if it is deemed relevant, then your prior felonies can be considered in the current charge. So what does that mean? It means that Geoffrey Paschel was not brand new to the criminal justice system. Geoffrey had multiple felony convictions. And again, I want to stress the fact that a felony is a felony is a felony. They don't care in the criminal justice system what that felony looks like. It's a felony. So the prosecutor presented his previous felonies. Now, his felonies in the past have been drug convictions. Shelby, is that true?
Yes.
So it's been drug convictions, trafficking, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So that being said, he has been deemed, and in this situation specifically, a multiple offender. And that is why when he was convicted during the sentencing hearing, that the judge had the leniency to talk about 12 to 20 years, and that he got on the harsher end of the 20 years, which is 18-year conviction with no possibility of parole, which means he has to serve 100% of his time. That is why. And I think that a lot of people don't understand that. And so do you want to speak on that a little bit before we move forward?
Absolutely. I mean, this is probably the number one thing that I'm seeing in not only your comments, my comments. I mean, go to E! News and Touch, any of those pages that are covering this. And the comments are, the judge threw the book at him, way harsh of a sentence.
Yeah.
Murderers get less than that. Rapists get less than that, whatever it is. And I think a lot of frustration and anger is misplaced in this situation because number one, we don't see this happen in the justice system often. We don't really see a victim stand up and they get carried through and carried out and justice be served. So right there, that's out of the norm. But what people aren't understanding is that Europe or other countries' judicial systems compared to ours are very different. Over in Europe, in some countries, domestic violence is less than a year or a light sentence. They're also have a whole different take and all that kind of stuff on domestic violence. I know in Russia, it just became, like we talked about last time, it just became a crime 2 years ago. So, but in America, and I don't know how the way the justice system works in Europe as far as accumulating crimes and a record, but in America, like you said, if you have a record, you're sentenced based on your current crime, but your record comes into play because, what I don't think people realize is that this sentence is not just a form of punishment, if you would, for Geoffrey. It's also a way to keep society safe from this habitual career criminal, abusive criminal, because he has been arrested and charged with assault, domestic violence, and all of that in the past. This is a way to keep him from reoffending. And that's why the judge also mentioned that due to the evaluation that he had in the jail, which was performed by a non-biased psychiatrist, I would imagine, Geoffrey was deemed as a moderate risk to offend again. And there's low, moderate, and high. So he's right in the middle. And as having high needs when it comes to his mental health. So all of that comes into play here. So maybe if he was a first-time offender, this was his first offense and all of that, 18 years would be super harsh. And they even said it in the courtroom. If he was not a habitual offender or a range 2 offender, as they call them in Tennessee, the range would have been 8 to 12 years for all of these charges. It was 12 to 20 because he has a long rap sheet. He's been doing this that we know of with unsealed records, because juvenile records were sealed, for almost 30 years now.
Yeah, I do want to touch upon that, Shelby, because my background is criminology, political science. I originally wanted to be an investigative reporter. And what I want people to understand is that I think back to my first year criminology 101 class and my professor talking about how when habitual offenders get finally caught, they get caught on whatever their current crime is. But you have to think about all the times they didn't get caught, right? Exactly. So again, I want our viewers to understand, I want the 90-Day Fiancé community to understand that what is presented in front of you is not necessarily what's happening behind closed doors. You don't know the day-to-day to the day-to-day to the day-to-day of this specific person. Mm-hmm. And for multiple people to come out and say, I'm a victim of this person, for this person to have multiple felonies, right? So that means you've been through the criminal justice system. A jury of your peers have said, yes, indeed, you are guilty. And this person has spent time behind bars before. You can't then now say, because you've seen him on TV, you've seen him on a reality show, and you perhaps love his personality. He might be attractive to you. He might be charming to you. All of the things that he's indeed not guilty of his current convictions. So I need everyone to put everything in perspective and to see his criminal history in its totality, because that's what we're talking about. So when we're talking about the 18 years, we're talking about the severity of this offense. It needs to be looked at in its totality and not specifically just like, oh, hey, oh my God, because he's a reality star, they threw the book at him. Oh, because he's a reality star, they're trying to make an example of him. No, that's not what judges do. Okay. They're not going to be like, oh, hey, I watched 90 Day Fiancé and I want to make an example of him. No, the judge, and this judge specifically that you see on your screen, was looking at the totality of Geoffrey's previous felony convictions. He ruled that because Geoffrey had previous felony convictions, he is deemed a repeat habitual offender. And like you said, Shelby, in Tennessee, it's considered a Schedule II offender. And therefore, he was able to come to his decision based on off of that information. I wanted to talk to you, Shelby, about Tanya's comment right here that I've popped on the screen.
Oh.
She said, I'm sure he was warned about this before he refused the plea offer. Do you remember the plea offer? Because I vaguely remember it, and I remember him doing a live on Instagram and basically saying he was not going to plead guilty, even though if he pled guilty, and correct me if I'm wrong, he would have been sentenced and been guilty, but only have served 1 year or have been on probation for 1 year. Any talk on that?
So when this first happened and he was arrested, I don't know what the original charges were, but they were much less. It may have even been a misdemeanor, simple assault or something like that. I'm not positive. But at that time, they offered him no jail time, just to have it on his record, and he would walk out the door if he pled guilty. And he said, absolutely not. That's actually, I think, verbatim what he says on the Dom Natty interview. Absolutely not. I'm not going to say I'm guilty for something that I didn't do. Take me to the grand jury. And he goes to the grand jury, and the grand jury says, yeah, you're right. We're not going to hold those charges because you did something way worse. We're going to charge you with aggravated kidnapping, domestic assault, interference with a 911 call, and vandalism. So, and then after that, he was offered another plea deal. I want to say in the fall of 2020, he was offered, it was like something like 4 years of probation with like intensive therapy, I think the entire time, and other, obviously stipulations. And he said no to that as well. And I was dating him at that time, and he was appalled at the intensive therapy for the entire time.
So can we talk about that a little bit? So when you started dating him and you were hearing all these things, Shelby, were you on his side? Did you not believe that these things were happening? Speak on that, please.
So when we met, I didn't really know anything about him. And when I first messaged him, other than I'd seen the second episode of the show, I'm pretty embarrassed by this and ashamed, but at the same time, he's good. I mean, like, I found out about the assault very quickly after. And I've said this before on my page and other interviews, is that for the year and a half that he was allowed to be out in the free world, out on bond, we only had his story to go off of and this police report. And the police report does not do any justice to Kristen's injuries whatsoever. It basically says she displayed symptoms of a concussion, which could mean a million different things. And I, even being a survivor of domestic violence myself, I don't know that I necessarily believed or didn't believe him, but like I was hook, line, and sinker, just gone within like minutes. Just.
And I do want to circle back to that, because I think that the judge touched upon that when he was speaking of the sentencing, and how Geoffrey's charismatic, he's good looking, he is able to convince people about his way. So I do want to circle back on that, Shelby. I'm going to answer a question from Auntie's Advice channel for women. She's asking you, is this the lady that was on here before? Yes, it is. She said she was going to show up in court. Did she? Did she write an impact letter? Do you want to speak on that?
Sure. So I was set, all ready to go. Everything done and set, and my debit card was stolen the day before. I was set to go. Now everyone's like, well, why wouldn't you still go? Because we had everything set for December, and then when it got changed, for some reason, the price to fly, Knoxville's a very tiny airport, to fly into Knoxville for this weekend was like some $350 more than the previous trip. So I was planning on flying into Nashville, renting a car and driving over. And when my debit card was, and I don't have another card, and if you don't know the rental car laws in America, look them up because I'm so tired of going over this, but you can't rent a car without a major debit card or credit card in your name. So I would have been stranded in Nashville without a way to get over. So I was going to drive. I was like getting ready to hop in my car and drive the 12 hours. And a lot of people talked to me, followers, friends, and all of them, and were like, you can't do that. You know what I mean? Like, you just can't like do it to myself, because I would have been driving up 12, staying for like the trial, and then driving back. So no, I didn't go. I have an airline credit because some people donated to have me go. I have an airline credit. So as you saw, Kristen is pregnant any day, well, any week now. So I'm going to go up there after she has the baby and when it's a little bit warmer and see her, because we still have not had a chance to see each other in person. And as far as the lodging goes, Sabrina, Geoffrey's first wife, we were set to stay together in the Airbnb that I rented, but she stayed there so that she was able to go to the trial, because she would not have been able to go because she's from Kentucky. So that was put to good use.
So I'm sorry, how many ex-wives does Geoffrey have?
He has 2 ex-wives and 1 current wife.
Okay, so Sabrina and who else?
Sabrina, Allison, who testified.
Or his ex-wives?
Yes, Sabrina and Allison are his ex-wives. Brittany is his current wife.
Brittany is his current wife. And then he had a bunch of fiancés?
So he and Kristen, and I mean, were dating for a couple years and wound up engaged.
Varia?
Yeah, Varia. I mean, who knows with that whole thing? Really, honestly, I really don't know like what's real with that and what's not, to be like totally blunt with you. I know that when I was at his house and he had like a ring stand, whatever those things are, and there were about 3 or 4 fake engagement rings on and wedding bands on the ring thing. And in conversing and comparing notes with some of his exes, that's like a thing, you know what I mean? But he had like a bunch of them. I believe one of them was the one from Russia with Varia. So
I just want to wrap my mind around it. So 2 ex-wives, 1 current wife that Brittany, who he's not divorced from, and then possibly 3 fiancés, and then a bunch of girlfriends sprinkled in between. Would that be accurate?
Yeah, there's been 1 girlfriend affair, whatever it is, for the last 20 years at least. So she has been a consistent through Sabrina, Allison, Brittany, Kristen, and so on.
Okay, I want to address some of the questions in the live chat before we move forward. Patty says, I work at an abuse neglect hotline, and the big difference is the ability to manipulate someone in a relationship with him versus people who have no previous relationship, worlds apart.
I don't know that I understand what she's...
So I think she's saying that Geoffrey's able to manipulate people in his relationships, which I think is what the judge was saying. And that versus someone who has never been in a domestic abuse domestic violence relationship, he's able to manipulate that situation. I think that that's what she's saying. And then Vanessa's saying, is Mary still in the mix? I know she was in a picture with Varia. Do you want to speak on Mary a little bit? Because I don't want to talk about the court stuff yet, because I'm going to get to that. Mm-hmm. But what is her status? Is it that they're just good friends and she loves him as one of her best friends?
I'm trying to think like how to do this PC. I don't know what to call their friendship, relationship, whatever it is. It's sexual. It's
wait, what?
Oh, you know, I don't really care.
Wait, what? I'm confused because Shelby, it's sexual, but Varia and Mary are friends. And Varia and Mary, I remember, not too long ago, did like a reel where it was, I can't remember, but there's like some 70s shows where there are two girls. Before my time, I wasn't born yet, but like two girls, I don't know. You know what show I'm talking about? Someone in live chat tell me.
Yeah, but it had that whole,
like, Laverne and Shirley. It was very Laverne and Shirley-ish, right? They were dancing and the whole thing. And I was like, wait, what, are they friends now? Right? And one of my sources have said that they had always been friends and that the drama was specifically only for 90 Day Fiancé. And that's why they were able to come together when Geoffrey started having these, criminal justice issues. So now you're saying that they had a sexual relationship, but so is he having a sexual relationship with Varia and Mary at the same time?
I mean, I don't know after we broke up what happened and she moved to America. I don't know. But I know that when she was still living in Russia and I was dating him, this was in the fall of 2020. Mm-hmm. And this was in October, of 2020. And she moved here in December of 2020. So it was already in the works. So yes, they were together. And this was really triggering for me when watching the trial, because when Allison spoke about him going to Florida and breaking in the back of her parents' house and then sexually assaulting her, I guess I had like blocked out some stuff. And it was not blocked out anymore. And he and Mary, to me, sexually assaulted me when I was there. So, and then they had sex with each other next to me. So, yeah.
I'm sorry that was your experience. Thank you for sharing. I know that had to have been not easy for you to share. And I know that the last time we spoke, there was a lot that you couldn't say. So I appreciate your transparency. And I appreciate you sharing the intricacies of, a toxic relationship. So I'm sorry that happened to you. And working through that trauma cannot be easy. Tammy says, so sorry, Shelby. I do want to take it back to the beginning, Shelby, and I want to see what your reaction to this is.
Home in 2019.
You swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God.
Paschel took the witness stand at his trial and downplayed their confrontation.
But the incident occurred at the house based on her jealousy. Ever since then, it's morphed and it's made its own way to different things.
Before he made news as a defendant, he was featured on the show 90 Day Fiancé Before the 90 Days, where fans once tuned in to follow the budding romance between Paschel and his Russian girlfriend, Varia Melina.
I want to die.
Paschel's popularity plummeted once fans learned of the charges, and he was promptly dropped from the season finale, while publicly vowing to fight the allegations.
This is all just a ploy. This is all just an agenda to try to make me lose custody of my child.
But the jury didn't buy it, and Paschel was convicted of aggravated kidnapping, domestic assault, and interfering with an emergency call after his victim gave powerful testimony against him.
The next thing I remember, I was on the floor in front of my staircase that leads to the upstairs, and he had me by the back of my head and was hitting my face into the floor, and I was screaming for him to stop.
Police said Wilson displayed symptoms of a concussion, and she was taken to the hospital for treatment. Responding Knox County Sheriff's Officer Matt Johnson took the stand.
What do you want to say about that? Because I do want to say Amanda's comment about yikes, her saying I don't want to die doesn't hold up well. What I've been hearing and what I've been getting messaged and commented on is that part of what people think that Varya doesn't see is that her A, being on an international reality show, and B, being on, Court TV, again, international, is that it's possible that it saved her life, and she doesn't realize that. What do you want to say about that clip?
Yeah, I mean, I don't think it's a mistake that they keep using that clip of her saying I don't want to die. I mean, but it's sensationalism, obviously. But I mean, yeah, I am having a hard time. I'll be honest with you. I'm having a hard time having any sort of like caring, empathetic, sympathetic, anything feelings towards her. That's just where I'm at because I'm personally, involved. But yeah, I mean, this sentence saved a lot of people's lives, not just hers. You know what I mean? A lot of people's. I can't even tell you. Mine included, Kristen's, Allison's, Sabrina's, his children, anyone he was due to come in contact with. This sentence saved a lot of people. Her, Varya included, Mary included, Ashley included, anybody in this man's life included.
I said on my show earlier this week, that one of the issues that I've had with this whole situation is the fact that as women, there's a lot that we deal with on a regular basis, and just with society's norms and standards about what a woman, what a wife, what a girlfriend should do and not do. The biggest thing is the domestic violence piece. And I want to go ahead and pop this up before I talk about this. I think that it's important to realize that, again, what you see in the public sphere, what you see on a day-to-day basis is not necessarily what's happening behind closed doors. And a lot of people have questions about, like, why didn't this person leave early? Even with you, Shelby, why would you get involved with someone if you already knew that there were these issues happening and all of those things? And like the judge said, I think that oftentimes people who are alleged predators, people who don't value women, right? Because domestic violence, in my opinion, is about power and control. Mm-hmm. And it's about being more than you think your partner is. And so you get yourself in a situation where you think it's love, and you've been in this situation for months or years or whatever the case may be. And because the way society has structured itself, you're either financially bonded to this person, or you're bonded to them through children, or you're just bonded to them through them breaking down your self-esteem. However the case may be, you're with this person, and because you've not ever been in a DV relationship, you don't know that this is not what it's supposed to look like. And so I think it's important, again, like I keep saying, to put all of this in perspective, to look at the bigger picture, and to understand that what you see on TV, little clips, reality fame, whatever the case may be, even if it's your like favorite celebrity, what you're seeing presented to you is not necessarily what's happening behind closed doors. And I think that that's really important, because I know that around the world, domestic violence is not looked at as, oh, this is a big deal, whatever. I think that there was one comment on my page that I was just like, I want to respond, but I know that this person is steeped in their beliefs. One of the comments that I saw was this one specific woman was talking about how women need to service their husbands, and that she feels like if more young women would have sex and expect sex in their relationships, specifically in their marriages, then there would not be an issue. Men wouldn't cheat. She talked about how a man couldn't rape his wife. And I wanted to go there, but then I realized some people, you can't change their mind because they don't understand that domestic violence is it's a serious issue. It's an issue that's swept under the rug. But as women, we need to stand up and raise our voices. And I know that domestic violence is not specifically only towards women in general. Mm-hmm. But I will say this, that predominantly there are women victims that suffer behind closed doors. Now, is domestic violence non-gender? Absolutely. But I want us to get to a place in life where it's just not okay. Doesn't matter who you are. Do you want to say anything to that?
Yeah, I mean, I think, and it kind of clicked for me after the sentencing, is that, and what has transpired, and a couple people have said it, is that, you know, he was given this platform and this reach. And I think I might have commented in like a really long rant under E-News's post because I was just like so fed up. But that, you know, Geoffrey's calculated and he's smart. He knew what he was doing, you know, and the judge said it as well, to present this image of himself, good, loves animals, caring dad, won't even kill a stink bug, just lost, looking for love, has had his heart broken so many times that by the time we got to the trial and we saw those photos, it would seem like such a far cry from the guy that we knew, that there would be this discrepancy, right?
Yeah.
No, he couldn't have possibly done that. Or Ashley made a post later that night that said, you know, we don't know the man that this judge speaks of. Well, that's the point.
Yeah.
You know, he made it a point for you not to. And I think also in this situation, because he was on a reality TV show and he's been on all these Oxygen and Snapped and ID shows and all that stuff, is that it's hard to see him on TV, see him on your social media, see him on your internet, and then see him on your TV again. But differentiate that court TV appearance, real life. Yeah. That was not a reality TV show. That was not an episode he was on. And it's scary and it's sad that it's so enmeshed like that now, that people can't separate. Like when she posted her reel, this is what really got me. People commenting under, have fun.
Yeah.
In court, have fun.
Yeah.
Oh, he's going to look so handsome. Like, so, and yeah, I think, you know, domestic violence, you're correct, does not have a gender. Are 7 maybe out of 10 cases involving men towards women? Yes, that's just statistics. And, you know, domestic violence is not just physical. It's mental, emotional, psychological, spiritual, financial. Like you said, financial abuse is when a man, woman, whoever the partner is that's being abusive, will make it so that the person they're abusing is solely financially dependent on them. Like we heard Allison say, where she didn't have the means to leave him. And that is with a lot of women. I work at a domestic violence shelter local in my area, and these women are smart. These women are strong. These women are brilliant, but they are left having multiple children, having no job, sometimes no education allowed, because that is how these abusers keep their victims dependent upon them in every area possible. So I wish and I hope and I pray that this is the beginning of a different narrative.
Absolutely. And I think that that's why we're doing this. Mm-hmm. Shelby, you and I, you know, we've talked and we've reached out to each other, and part of the reason why I wanted to do this specifically and talk about the sentencing is to debunk a lot of the myths that are out there that I think that people just don't understand about domestic violence specifically in the criminal justice system in the United States directly. And I wanted to jump in because I want to play this clip for you. We're going to do a lot of different clips and talk about it as we go through this. So everyone bear with us. It's going to be a long journey, but I think it's an important journey. I wanted to jump into the live chat because, again, when we're talking about domestic violence and we're talking about how your public front is not necessarily what's happening behind closed doors, and how so many people can relate, but they don't have the voice, they don't have the platform, or they just don't have the opportunity to speak out. I'm going to go with Auntie's advice channel for women. She says, I got rid of my abuser immediately, all caps, took him to court for months and had him incarcerated. But then we have Tammy, who said, it took me 10 years to escape and never got justice. Okay. So there are people that are dealing with this specific domestic violence situation on a regular basis, and you may not know it. You may see smiles on their face. You may see them go through their day-to-day routine. But again, you don't know what's happening behind closed doors. And that's how important this situation is. I'm going to go ahead, Shelby, and play this clip, and then we're going to talk about it and move forward.
This is a big step under Tennessee law when you have the sentencing, because then we can proceed with a motion for new trial and then continue with an appeal on Geoffrey's behalf. So the sentencing range is fairly rigid under Tennessee law based on the offenses that he was convicted of. So as you pointed out, there's a sentencing range of 12 to 20 years. So we'll be presenting a variety of mitigating evidence and factors for Judge Hickson on Thursday. There is a lot of support and character letters that will also be presented for the court for their consideration. The uphill battle is the state has filed to seek for an enhanced punishment. That's why we have a range of 12 to 20 years based on some prior convictions. But on Geoffrey's behalf, we're looking forward to getting to the Court of Appeals and addressing some of the issues that we perceive to be potential errors during the course of the trial. Obviously, we can't comment on those until they're public record, but we're looking forward to Thursday because that's the next step that allows us to move forward on Geoffrey's behalf.
And Gregory, tell me, we know that you're a trial attorney. Our viewers, we all got to see you in action. You did a fine job advocating for your client in a tough case with a lot of evidence stacked against him, but you advocated very zealously for him. I know that often in the practice of law, you may just do trial work and not necessarily appellate work too. So I wanted to clarify, will you be pursuing this on appeal, the motion for new trial, and then filing an appeal as well to the higher court, or will you be passing that off to an attorney that strictly handles those kinds of matters?
Julie, we are retained for the appeal, and we do a lot of appeals. We just had a great result in a first-degree murder conviction that we took over with the issue of schizophrenia this Friday from the Tennessee Court of Appeals. So, yes, we do. We don't like to go to the Court of Appeals because that means typically we receive an adverse decision, or we take it over from somebody that does. But no, we're very familiar with the record. We have already identified issues that we want to present. So we're ready to move forward.
Okay, so what I want to say about this, you guys, is that interview was done the Tuesday before the Thursday of the sentencing hearing. He went on Court TV, Geoffrey's lawyer, to elaborate about what he thought was going to happen on Thursday. And just like Varya, and Varya had plenty of lives that she's done that I've shared on my show before, where she didn't think that the sentencing hearing was going to be anything. She, in my opinion, thought that perhaps Geoffrey was going to go free, that there was like a ace under the hat or whatever the case may be. Hence, like, oh, I'm going to bring him a suit. It's going to be like a super cool reel. And I'm going to decide, like, does this match? Does this match? All the things, minimizing the severity of the situation, minimizing the fact that he's a multiple long-term offender, and that how serious this specific domestic violence charge was. So I thought it was interesting that he took to doing an interview on the Tuesday before the Thursday to talk about, hey, yeah, no, we're retained. We're going to be part of the appellate court, and we're going to also appeal his sentencing, and we're just waiting for the sentencing. We're going to wait for it to be public record, and there are issues that we've already identified that are going to be part of our appeal process. Now, I want you guys to understand that the appeal process. Okay, so here's what you need to know. Here's what you need to know is that the appeal process is not an easy process. Once you are indeed in the criminal justice system, you're in it. And so just like how you see people who have been wrongfully convicted and they go to, and I can't think of the word right at the top of my head, but they go to lawyers who represent those situations. It's not an easy process, and they don't get it out of a prison right away. It's that same situation. Whatever you believe about Geoffrey, even if he appeals, he's not going to get out tomorrow if the verdict goes in his direction. They're going to go through the steps because that is his right. But there has to be like an error in the judge's judgment, or there has to be him saying he had an ineffective counsel. There has to be a legal problem issue for the courts to actually hear the appeal. So they're going through the motions because that's his right as a convicted felon, but that doesn't mean that he's going to be out tomorrow. And I think that that's important to note because people think, oh yeah, there's going to be a new trial and this is going to be overturned, and especially all of like his supporters and all of that stuff. That is not how the criminal justice system works. Do you want to speak on this clip at all, Shelby?
Yeah, so someone immediately DM'd me when this was on live, and I missed it. I only caught the tail end, and my immediate first reaction was that it was that he deliberately did this interview, deliberately said that he was already retained for an appeal, and that they've identified multiple things in for it to do exactly what it did. It sent my blood pressure through the roof. It immediately terrified me. I became scared, terrified, anxious, totally forgetting that, not forgetting that sentencing was happening, but already past sentencing. We're at an appeal. What if this flips around and all of that? And then I stopped and I said to myself, he probably knows that Kristen is either watching, someone's going to send it to her or something. And I'm not saying like the attorney's that calculated, but attorneys are calculated. That's their jobs. So there was no mistake that he did. He could have just said, we have sentencing going. We're confident, that we have what we need to present, this, that, and the other. Didn't have to, talk about the appeal. And I guess we know that he's not going to say he had ineffective counsel, because if he's representing him, he wouldn't represent him against ineffective counsel of himself.
Yeah.
And that whole, that we've identified multiple things. Listen, I watched the trial twice. I know the one moment in that trial, which everybody does, where Kristen said that Geoffrey was deleting pictures of prior abuse. And that's when it stopped, all of that, he wanted a mistrial in the moment. So that's the only thing that I can think of. And I mean, I don't know, but to me, that's not enough to flip this around, especially now that we know for a fact that there was previous abuse. But yeah, like you said, the appeal process is a long process, and it's a multi-step process. He'll go in April for the motion for new trial before Judge Hickson, and Judge Hickson, which is the same judge that just sentenced him, would have to say, okay, like, let me flip this around, which is probably not going to happen. So he doesn't, and then they have to send it up to the higher court.
That's right. And I just want to clarify, Shelby, it's March 24th. So almost April, but March 24th is the date that they set at the end.
Okay. I heard April
trial.
14th.
I'm going to address, Amanda, your question shortly, but I do want to move forward because we have a lot to get through. Shelby, I'm going to go ahead and play this clip of
Allison,
who is an ex-wife of Geoffrey, and then we're going to talk about that and then move forward.
2006, late 2006, and shortly after that we got married, and we're married until mid 2013, roughly.
6 years you were married. Okay. Do the two of you have any children together?
Yes,
And how many?
we had one.
Okay. How old is it a boy, girl?
It's a boy. His name is Crusoe, and he is 10.
All right. And you know why you've been called to court today.
Absolutely.
And you know that Mr. Paschel has been convicted of several things related to Miss Wilson, correct?
Yes.
I want to talk to you specifically about some things that happened during your marriage to Mr. Paschel. At any point during your marriage, was there physical abuse?
Yes, there was.
And if you could, to the extent that you can just kind of recall it off the top of your head there, can you just tell us about specific instances that you remember?
Sure. Early into our marriage, a couple months in, there was definitely verbal and emotional abuse. He would.
Your Honor, I would object. The enhancement factors talks about prior criminal offenses or criminal behavior. Verbal domestic arguments would not rise to the level of satisfying the enhancement prong under Tennessee law and would not be admissible or appropriate. So we would object, move to strike, and ask that it be excluded further from this hearing. General.
Judge, I will just ask her about the physical abuse. However, if there were instances of verbal abuse where you felt like you
object to her talking to the witness, if she can ask the question and allow me to object.
Okay, here's how I'm going to rule. I'm going to sustain the objection in part with a clarification. We don't need to hear about verbal altercations. The general is aware of our state's assault statute and how certain verbal behavior could rise to the level of criminal activity. You guys are well aware of that. I will allow that type of evidence, but otherwise, the general could just remain focused on questioning regarding specific instances of alleged criminal conduct.
Yes, Judge. And so with that, can you tell us about any physical abuse or were you ever put in fear by any verbal abuse?
Absolutely. There were many threats made to me and to my family. He was violent to me on numerous occasions.
And I'm going to stop you for just a second. When you say threats, what kind of threats?
To kill me, to harm my family, and one of the last physical altercations that we had was I was arriving home after spending time with my cousin, with my son at the time, and he didn't believe that I was where I said I was, and showed up at my home, grabbed me and threw me into the bathroom, closed the door, told me not to leave, or there would be consequences. He took Crusoe and put him in the car and left. He had taken my keys along with that. After sitting there for a little while, I opened the door and quietly came out. He wasn't in my house anymore. Happened to find, I found my phone, and when I contacted him to make sure my son was okay, so that was my primary concern. Shortly after, he came back to my house, and nowhere in sight was my son. but he immediately attacked me and grabbed me and shoved me into the wall, threw me on the ground, strangled me. When I finally broke free, he went and swung at me, and I moved so he could hit the top of my head versus my face. And after that struggle went on for a good 20 minutes, I finally was able to plead for him to stop.
All right. So, Shelby, one of the things I want to say, I'm going to pop this up. Kathy Hill, because I know that I corrected you, and I guess I stand corrected. From my notes, it was March 24th, but Kathy goes ahead and says they started with March 24th. They actually started with March 17th, and it didn't work. They moved to March 24th, which I thought was the final date, but she says due to scheduling conflicts, it ended up being set to April 14th or 15th. So you were indeed, Shelby, you're correct about the April 15th or 14th date for the new trial date. And when I say new trial date, is that they're going to see if there is cause to have a new trial. Correct?
Yes. That is when they will motion for a new trial. And really quickly, I just want to say I was incorrect. He does have one current wife, 3 ex-wives. He does have an ex-wife, I think before Sabrina, named Susan. I think it's before Sabrina or in between. And they have a son together that I believe is older, like the oldest of all of them. So, and I have no idea whether she wrote a letter or not. I don't believe so. I don't believe that that's a amicable relationship either.
Perfect. So I'm glad we clarified that, just because there are a lot of moving parts here. I think I'm still not clear in my head how many women are involved in this, but I do know at a bare minimum, like we talked about, it's 7 to 12, perhaps 4 ex-wives and girlfriends and fiancés strewn in between, and then again, like 7 to 12 children involved as well.
Mm-hmm.
Right? So I just feel like that says a lot. That being said, I do want to talk about this clip that we just saw about Allison. I know that you have an individual relationship with Allison. Do you want to speak on this clip? And then I'll speak after you.
So I actually don't have a relationship with Allison. We've never spoken. I've spoken to her husband. But I know Allison through my relationships with Kristen and Sabrina. And I'd already known a little bit about what she was going to share that had happened. And this is the mother so when he was out for the 1.5 years, he was going to court like over and over again, and he would take pictures in a court suit and this, that, and the other. He was going to court for a case involving Allison, where Allison had filed for termination of parental rights, to terminate Geoffrey's parental rights. So I say that because, there's a lot of people, oh, she's lying for Kristen lied for her, this, that, and the other. That's a big deal to file, to have someone's parental rights terminated, meaning that if the court rules in her favor, which I believe they already did long before this, that Geoffrey's no longer his father legally. You know what I mean? Like, done and done. So you got to ask yourself, if someone is willing to go to that extreme, like there's truth, you know what I mean, to what is being said. But yeah, I mean, Allison, he tortured all of these women. Sabrina, Allison.
So is Allison's an ex-wife? Is she the one that still lives in the United States that has 2 children by him? Or is she the one that moved to Canada?
Neither.
Oh, wow.
She has 1 child with him. This is I guess this would be his 3rd wife. Brittany's his 4th. And they have 1 child together, and she lives, I feel like I want to say Washington State, but I could have that confused with Washington, D.C.
Got it. Okay, so she has 1 child. We saw from Court TV in the trial, They were married they were together from 2006 to 2013, and they have one child together.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Okay. All right. I thought, okay, so Dasha has a quick question for you before we move forward with the next clip. Did you move back to Maryland?
I did not. I continued on south to Florida.
There you go. All right, we're going to play this next clip where, again, the reason why I want you guys, we're going step by step, is I want to be methodical, and so that you guys have the full picture of what's happening and what has happened, and you have a better understanding how we got to 18 years as a sentencing. So just to recap, if you're just joining us, we are covering the Geoffrey Paschel sentencing hearing that happened the other day, and he got sentenced to 18 years full time, which means he's not eligible for parole. Part of what the United States criminal justice system does, specifically Tennessee, is they have an enhanced sentencing factor, which means that if you're deemed a habitual offender, a repeat offender, that they can take in your past offenses in sentencing your current situation. That being said, we're going to go ahead and hear the judge address Geoffrey's past drug convictions. So let me go ahead and play that for you.
Being the number that he would need to reach range 2 on a Class B felony. And for that reason, I do believe that the state has shown beyond a reasonable doubt that Mr. Paschel is a range 2 multiple offender.
All right. Shelby, do you want to talk about what a range 2 multiple offender is in the state of Tennessee?
Sure. So 2 prior felonies makes you a range 2 offender. And Geoffrey, what the state did, and they did a great job at, is that, ooh, there goes my light. Sorry, I'll find it back.
It's okay.
I'm not going to find it back because it just burned.
Oh, no.
I don't know what's happening. Okay. So Geoffrey's a range 2 offender. The state presented, and they did a great job of it, that he has 2 previous felony convictions, 2 federal convictions. And, like you said earlier, a lot of people were saying, well, those were drug convictions of being a drug dealer. This is domestic violence. They're 2 totally different realms, totally different things. How can you, whatever. And like you said, a felony is a felony is a felony. I believe doesn't California still have the 3-strike rule, or is that gone?
I can't speak on that because I haven't researched it. But
okay, yeah,
I know it's a thing. I don't know if it's a thing
I'm pretty positive
in 2022.
I'm pretty positive they still do. But in California, like you said, 3 strikes, you're out, 25 to life. Doesn't matter what the 3rd strike is. So in Tennessee, they don't have a 3-strike rule. They have to establish that someone is a previous offender in order to get that enhancement, which they did. Now, a lot of people were like, and the discrepancy was that his drug charges, which were back, in 90, I forget what year it was, they didn't have an amount, right? The amount of drugs that he was arrested with.
Yeah.
And I guess back then, amount didn't change the charge. Nowadays, it changes your charge from a misdemeanor to a felony to trafficking to this, that, and the other. So what they were clarifying and arguing was that a schedule, whatever it was, like the amount doesn't matter. That his previous charges of the drug dealing and all that kind of stuff, whether it was that much or this much, establishes him as a habitual offender and range 2 offender. So
So I just want to summarize what you said. So for the viewers watching right now, what Shelby is saying is that Geoffrey's not a first-time offender. And in the state of Tennessee and in a lot of different states in the United States, if you're deemed a habitual offender, meaning this is not your first time to the rodeo, your previous convictions can be considered with your current sentencing. And that is what happened in this sentencing hearing with Geoffrey Paschel, is that he had multiple previous felonies, you guys. And again, I don't think I have to give you the differentiation between felony and misdemeanors. He had multiple felonies, and the state of Tennessee, the prosecutor presented those felonies. What Shelby is saying is a lot of those felonies happened like in the 90s, prior to some of the laws changing, saying that, hey, you have to have a specific amount to be considered a trafficker. You have to have a specific amount to be considered a dealer, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. However, the judge also said, because those laws haven't changed that much, he can still consider the conviction, hence the felony conviction, in his current sentencing hearing. So I hope that that's clear to you guys. I do want to shout out C. Cruz. Thank you so much for supporting the Melanated Way. We do put a lot of work into what we do, so I appreciate you supporting. Thank you so much for the super sticker. I do want to move on to the next clip that we're going to talk about.
The trial heard the testimony of Miss Wilson. Wilson testified at trial that she testified at trial and today that she blacked out and was blacked out for probably half the time that this almost 2-hour assault was going on. She stated that she was in and out of consciousness. When they finally get up into the bedroom and she lays down, she's fighting to remain conscious so that she can try and then get out once he lays down. She talked about being in extreme physical pain. I mean, the pictures support that. She literally had, her forehead stuck out 2 inches. She had scrapes on just about every single part of her body. And in this case in particular, Judge, while I do concede that aggravated kidnapping does have the requirement of bodily injury, I believe that the proof in this case actually established serious bodily injury. And when we look at the statutory definition for serious bodily injury, it is protracted unconsciousness, extreme physical pain, protracted or obvious disfigurement. And I think in this case, the evidence was that all 3 of those things were present. Ms. Wilson testified. I mean, this was blacking out for an hour, in and out for almost an hour probably. She testified that she was in extreme physical pain, which makes sense given the size of the injury on her forehead.
All right, Shelby, I want to talk about Kristen specifically because she was the victim. I want you to address a lot of the things that both of us have heard in our comments and DMs. The smirking, that she got married so soon, that she's pregnant, and a little bit about the victim shaming. So can we speak on those 4 topics?
Yeah, absolutely. And this kind of goes to that whole thing that I was saying earlier about people not being able to differentiate between the reality TV show and this being not that and real. And, there's a lot of people while the trial was on Court TV's YouTube chat that were like, is it his kid? And it's like, and I think a lot, like, is it Geoffrey's child? And I think a lot of people don't realize, even though you see 2019 and it's 2022, that this June will be 3 years since the assault occurred. So, I mean, it's impossible that it could be Geoffrey's 3 years going on. But I think people don't really grasp that. So yeah, there was one comment that said, she was smiling in the court, smirking, smiling, whatever, in the gallery in the courtroom. She's not a true victim. A true victim wouldn't do that. She got married so soon after this happened. If, a real victim wouldn't be able to move on so quick, or, she wasn't afraid to walk her dogs. That's bullshit. She wasn't scared like that. I think and then, yeah, she's pregnant, whatever. And that's all victim shaming, and it's all just diluted. I don't even know what else to say about it, is that, victims, we're allowed to smile. We're allowed to be happy. the fact that she married someone, well, and I said this in the comments, and like, I shouldn't have to do this, but I will because I have the knowledge, is that her and her husband dated for, I think, close to like 6 years before they split, and she dated Geoffrey. So this is not some guy that she just met, you know, after the assault and then boom, got married, which is what people are making it out to be, you know, that like, oh, she's a liar. This is bullshit, you know? No. So, and at the end of the day, let's just say she did meet her husband right after the assault and got married 3 months later. What does that have to do with anything? What does it have to do with anything? Someone even said to me, you're not a real victim because you want to go be in the same room as him. A real victim wouldn't want to be near their abuser. And I think it's important to note that everybody handles trauma differently, and that nobody has the authority or the room to dictate to anybody else how they handle or process their trauma. And what's more disheartening about this is that a lot of these people making these comments are women, and then women that go on to say, I was in a domestic violent relationship. I know what a victim looks like, and she's not one. And I think that just goes to speak to what we were saying before about like how society feels about domestic violence. Like even victims are victim shaming other victims. And it's just how society views this issue, you know, is that it's so taboo and it's so whatever that like, but it's happening all the time, everywhere. So yeah, I was upset by all of that. I expected all of those comments. They happened after the trial as well. And victim shaming is a real thing, like a very real thing. And again, I think people see a character on TV that Geoffrey is, and thought this court TV thing was a performance and all of that kind of stuff. And no, like these are real people's lives. These are real people who have a lifetime of trauma to deal with, hurt, pain, permanent physical injuries, permanent mental things going on. I mean, yeah, Kristen's pregnant. Kristen's 9 months pregnant and had to get up on the stand on Thursday and not only stare Geoffrey in the face, but also stare his attorney in the face and that whole section behind him of people that she knows are out there saying she's a liar, she's this, she's that, and the other. So I don't have time for any of that at all. I won't listen to it. I won't put up with it. I won't tolerate it. People need to be, I think, more educated on like domestic violence and all of this stuff, you know, like what it's like to leave, or, you know, people shame people. Well, they didn't leave. It's not leaving, it's escaping, first of all. And even his attorney was up there saying, oh, well, how afraid could you have really been? Did you leave? Did you call the police? Did you file a police report? Did you do this, that, and the other? And I know from my own personal experience that calling the police or filing a police report, or like Allison said, what was a restraining order going to do? A piece of paper, an order of protection that doesn't do anything. So, and 9 times out of 10, if I were to tell somebody or something, it would get back to my abuser, and then I would get it even worse. So all of those things go into play. Nobody can understand, like you said, what is going on in someone's life unless you're living it. But I just think this narrative needs to change, you know, from like, what can we do to educate and protect our men and women against these type of people and this type of behavior, and not, you know, how can we glorify this man and shame these women? So I don't know if that made any sense, but
it made 100% sense. I do want to say this, that in regards to Kristen specifically, because this was her sentencing trial, when it comes to smirking, I want you guys to consider that every person deals with grief and trauma differently. I I think it's important to understand that if you have not been in this situation, you don't know how you would act or react. And it was not a closed court. It was an open court for the entire world to see. And not everyone, like myself, who I'm a journalist, I'm used to being on camera, in front of the camera with tons of people. Not everyone is familiar with dealing with that. And not only are they not familiar with dealing with that, I chose to be in this profession. She is an elementary school teacher. That's not her profession. So however she's acting or reacting, I don't think that there is one specific right way to act or react. She's going to deal with trauma and grief and the bright lights and court, how she deals with it. And there's no right or wrong way. So for those people that feel like there's a way, you should do this and you should be crying, you should be losing, not everyone deals with things the same way. And so I don't think that that's a valid point, and it's not valid, and it's just not nice to judge that situation, especially when you've not been in it. As far as her getting married, quote unquote, so soon, again, just like in the 90-day fiancé realm and franchise, I need you guys to understand that we're not watching the show in real life. They have filmed a year in advance. Just like court doesn't say, hey, you know what, you got charged today, you're convicted tomorrow, we're going to court on Friday. This all happened in 2019. And I know we're in a pandemic and I lose time and dates all the time, but we are in 2022. So 2019, 2020, 2021, 2022, we're now at court for sentencing. And so, quote unquote, married so soon and her being pregnant, really 19, 20, 21, 22, we're in 4 years, going into 4 years since this incident happened. So should she not have gotten married? Should she not have gotten pregnant? Should she stay single and live in the trauma, or should she try to move forward? And like Shelby said, the person that she married wasn't someone that she like, oh, I hopped on Tinder and met the next dude the next day. This is someone that she had a history with. So again, I continue to tell you guys to look at the bigger picture and put everything in perspective, because what you're seeing presented to you now in real time, oftentimes, especially with reality TV, all the TV, it's not in real time. If you're not watching a news broadcast in real time, this is 10 o'clock news, it's probably pre-recorded and you don't know when it was pre-recorded. So keep that in mind. As far as victim shaming, I want to say this: domestic violence is a huge deal. More people than not are affected by it. Children, men, and women. And oftentimes, and we've talked about it earlier, but I think it's important to reiterate that they're stuck. And they're stuck in a situation that oftentimes that they've never been in. I'm going to share with you something that I personally have witnessed. But I'm not going to get into detail because it's not my story to tell, but I will say this. I was the friend of someone that was a domestic victim, but survivor, with someone who is readily known worldwide. I was still living in Canada at the time, and I had an apartment downtown Vancouver. And I hadn't talked to her in about a year, and we went to university together. I was doing my extended degree, all the things. And she was a bit older than me, and I met her in my first year. We became solid friends. I hadn't talked to her in a year. She had moved to California to be with this person who is in the public eye. And he isolated her. We used to talk like 2-3 times a week. We didn't talk for that whole year. And she popped up in Vancouver with him. And when she popped up in Vancouver, she popped up in my job. And I could tell when I first saw her that something was different. She looked different. She was acting different. She was at attention. And she just basically was like, I'm home. I'm visiting home, blah, blah. I would love to get together with you. Fast forward, we got together, and it was a super awkward situation. She went back to Los Angeles, and got pregnant. Reached out to me, said, hey, blah, 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 I'm going to be having a baby, this and that, this and that. We talked through that, and I was happy for her. And a short while later, she called me in a panic saying that she needed to come back to Vancouver immediately. Could she stay with me? And she did. And she lost that baby. I'll say that. And he came looking for her, but he didn't know where I lived. And so it was a whole situation that we dealt with at the time. And lo and behold, she went back to him. And when I talk about this situation, and I talk about my experience in university, because again, I tell you guys that like my undergrad is in all of this stuff. One of my professors said to me, think of it like a commercial. You watch a commercial and you think you saw it for the first time, but really you've seen it 7 times. It didn't register the first time. The second time, maybe you were eating dinner. The third time, you were distracted. The fourth time, you're like, who is this? What is this? But by the 7th time, you're like, oh, so-and-so and so-and-so. That's the same thing with people who are dealing with domestic abuse. They might want to leave the first time. They might want to leave the second time. The third time, they understand that the situation is not a situation that they should be in, but what can they do? Maybe there's a financial crutch involved. Maybe there are children involved. Maybe there's a lack of education involved. Maybe there's education involved, but there's also fear. Whatever the case may be, it's not on any of us to say, oh my God, this dude or this woman or this person did this to you this first time and you didn't leave and you had the choice to leave. That's not what happens. The abused, it takes time, because it's not only about the physical abuse, it's also about the mental abuse and your inner strength, your inner courage, your inner beliefs about yourself. That person has already tore all of that stuff down. And, you know, the outside bruises can heal, but the inside bruises haven't healed right away. So when we talk about victim shaming, I just encourage you guys to understand that it's not that easy. And all we can do as people that are a supporter of victims is support them in any way they need to be supported, and know that when the time is right, it will be right for that specific person, and they'll do what they need to do. And hopefully it's not too late. So I say all that to say, and I share my friend's story in a little bit, because again, it's not my story to tell in its complete entirety. And Dasha, I see your question, but again, it's not my story to tell. I will say this, you guys, be gentle. Be gentle with people, because you don't know what's happening behind closed doors. You see myself and Shelby here, but you don't know what's happening behind closed doors. You don't know our story, but you want to jump on social media and say this and that, and this person is this, and they should have done this, and this. You don't know. And so I encourage you to take a breath, look at the situation in its entirety, and make sure that you're not part of the problem, that you're not victim blaming someone who's in a situation that you may know nothing about. Okay? Because I will tell you this, domestic violence is more common than not. And I know Shelby said it, but I want to reiterate, the violence is not just, it's not just physical. It can be emotional. It can be mental. It can be financial. There are a lot of forms of abuse that happen to people, and it happens every single day. Okay? And it's the people that have the courage to speak out, like Shelby, speak out like Kristen, speak out like Allison, knowing that they're going to be trolled by people who don't think it's a big deal, people who think that, oh, you can't rape your wife, oh, you can't beat your wife, that's your wife, that's your duty. There's all of that. But guess what? They still take all of their trauma. They put their courage knowing that, you know what, my story is going to help the next person, and they go through it anyway. So I encourage you guys to make sure that you're not part of the problem. That being said, if you're in a situation right now, if you're in a situation that you're having questions about, if you are scared, on the bottom of the screen, you're going to see the hotline.org, where they don't trace anything. They know that you're in a dire need and they can help you. Please reach out to www.thehotline.org. Do you want to say anything before we move on? I know, Shelby, that was a long talk, but it was important for me to get out.
I thank you for sharing that. I appreciate you sharing something vulnerable like that. I think what's been on my brain since we started this little segment is that I just want to clarify what the look that Geoffrey had on his face after he was sentenced, that was smirking. Kristen cracked a smile. And you, right. So there you can kind of see her behind the DA.
Yep.
Listen, I saw it. I will be totally honest with you. I saw it. She was doing something with her hair and I saw her smile. And my first thought was, she's going to get ripped for that.
Yeah.
And I knew it immediately. I said, people are going to rip her for that and say she's not a real victim because she's smiling.
Yep.
So,
again, you know, I think that, again, you don't know people's reactions, right? So, like, my thing that I've noticed, and I didn't notice it, actually, people told me that this is what I do. Sometimes when I'm talking, Shelby, I do this.
I do it too.
With my lips.
Yeah.
And they're like, what are you doing? Why is that like something you do all the time? You're in an interview and you're like rubbing your lips all the time. And I didn't realize it's like I don't know. It's something that I don't realize that I'm doing, but
it's like self-soothing thing. That
something, right? We all have our thing. And does that mean that, oh, this is not a proper interview? Does that mean that whatever I'm going through, I didn't go through because I smirked or because I'm rubbing my lips? No, that doesn't mean that. It means maybe it's an insecurity, maybe it's self-soothing, whatever the case may be. It's involuntary and you just do it. And we, like I said, we all deal with trauma. We all deal with situations differently. And again, if you're on an international level, you have that much more eyes on you and that much more pressure on you. I do want to go ahead and play this clip and let's talk about it. Hold on 1 second. Let me get the clip ready. I think it's this one.
Serious bodily injury is not an element of aggravated kidnapping.
Only bodily injury. And we do believe that
the evidence supports that she did suffer serious bodily injury. So we would ask the court to apply those enhancement factors. Again, as to the length of the sentence, this is a sentence that has to be served at a 100% service rate. He may receive jail credits up to 15%. But given the history that we heard from that witness stand today, this is an individual who, for the last 15 years at least, has tormented the women in his life, has verbally assaulted them, has mentally abused them and controlled them, and has physically assaulted them. Ms. Wilson testified that she can't even walk her dogs down the street anymore. And she has good reason for that. These women, we make a lot to do in these cases about the fact that the women stay, but these women stay because of exactly why they said they did, because he controlled every aspect of their life. And he's done this for the better part of his life. We do believe that he is an extreme danger to society. He's a danger to, obviously, the women that he chooses to bring into his life. He has a very high lack of potential for rehabilitation. As we saw from the witness stand, you know, he is still blaming this entire thing on her. And even after conviction, he's directing his family to take his kids to her house, giving them her address and saying, take my kids there, and ask her to testify, you know, for me at sentencing, to say that I've learned my lesson. He's taken absolutely no responsibility for this. And I understand, in the state, again, we understand that because he did plead not guilty. But we do not believe that he was truthful when he testified at the trial. And the jury also apparently did not believe that these injuries were sustained from falling into a door. And so we do believe that he has a very strong lack of potential for rehabilitation. And so, again, Judge, at a minimum, the state would be asking.
Do you want to speak on that, Shelby, before I do?
Which part?
So all of it. So I'll start. So basically what the prosecutor was saying is this. It's everything that we said, that we've heard what domestic violence is. We've heard the injuries to this person. We've heard, like, why didn't she leave? Because his lawyer was like, well, why didn't she leave? Or why didn't she report it? Or why didn't she get a restraining order? And I will say this, that Antwi's advice says, ladies, false restraining orders do work. Please don't believe that they're not necessary. Mm-hmm. I'll say this, document everything, ladies, because that was part of what happened at trial, not at sentencing, but at trial, where they talked about, well, you did, what date, what specific time, what year? And if you're in trauma, you're not going to remember, oh, it was at 12:02 on September 23rd of 2020. You're just going to remember that, oh, perhaps on Sunday, I remember I woke up, I thought it was a good day, and it ended up not being a good day. And if there's multiple not good days, they're all going to blend into each other. So if you can, and you're someone that is dealing with domestic violence, keep a journal. But I understand when you write things down and you don't feel safe in your own home, that can be used against you. That's one thing. But the second thing is, I've always been told that if you're able to have friends, because a lot of the times these abusers isolate you and you don't have friends and family that you can reach out to immediately. If you are of the few that can, let whoever is in your circle know what's going on. Let them know, hey, listen, you know what, this happened to me. Go ahead and write that down for me because I can't keep that in the house. Go ahead and send a voicemail and say, hey, keep this voicemail. I'm deleting it on my end, but I need you to keep it. Because I've also been in that situation where someone's like, hey, listen, I need you to keep it. This is what's going on. I'm deleting it, but I need you to save it. Do all of those things, because as we've seen in this court where the defense counsel went ahead and asked both Allison and Kristen, well, what date did that happen? When did you say it? And you cannot be true if you don't remember what date it was. Could it be that serious? Listen, y'all, sometimes, especially in this pandemic, I don't know if it's Monday or Friday. Does that mean it wasn't Monday or Friday? Does that mean that whatever I'm saying happened didn't happen? No, it's because we're all going through a lot. So you can imagine going through a lot on top of trauma, on top of violence, on top of making sure that today you wake up and you're not going to be abused. Okay, so I say all that to say the prosecutor was saying that here's what Kristen said, this is what happened to her, and this is why Geoffrey should be considered for the enhanced sentencing, which we continue to talk about because a lot of people don't understand enhanced sentencing. And enhanced sentencing in the state of Tennessee, if you are considered a multiple offender, I'm echoing somewhere. If you're considered a multiple offender if you're considered someone who has multiple felonies, your previous felonies can be considered in your current sentencing, which is why that instead of 12-year on the lower end, he was considered for 12 to 20 on the higher end, and why he got 18 years. He's not a first-time offender. He has multiple felonies. And again, a felony is a felony is a felony when you consider the courts. So that's what the judge took into consideration. Shelby, do you want to speak on anything?
Are we gonna go over it later, or now the him asking his kids to go to Kristen's house?
Oh, we're going to talk about that shortly. Let's go ahead and look at this clip, and then we can talk about it.
Tennessee, the defendant is given an opportunity to address the court. It's called allocution. This is your opportunity to address the court if you would like to do so at this time.
We have just a moment.
Yes.
Your Honor, Mr. Paschel would like to briefly address.
He was just speaking to his client about the opportunity for allocution.
I'm a 44-year-old man. I have a lot of love left in me, a lot of hope. I have dreams still. I have a beautiful family. Beautiful friends. I'm a dad. Got children right there. I want to be a grandfather here in May. I'm an uncle, I'm a nephew, I'm a son, I'm a grandson. I respect Miss Wilson Chapman. I respect Miss Moon. Miss Moon is the mother of my child. She's right, I haven't seen her in 5 years. I wish nothing but the best for them. Although there is a different circumstance of events that occurred, I still respect them. I wish nothing but the best for them. As far as punishment, punished and broken. There, I can rehab. Rehabilitation is a form of punishment, and I want to be better no matter what. I do have faults, but I want to be better. I want to be the best at what I can be. And my focus is on doing that, whether it be, via my family or just be a better person all the way around. As you hopefully read in those letters, people have a common theme in that I go out of my way to help people. I don't need anything. I don't want anything. It just gives me that internal satisfaction to help people. That's my reward. So I ask that you have mercy on me. You have mercy on my family, my kids, and show me leniency in the sentencing so I can be a productive member of society and be back in their lives. Thank you, Reverend.
Thank you, sir. The court is called upon to impose a sentence here that is consistent with the purposes and principles of the Tennessee Sentencing Reform Act. And there are mandatory considerations that I must look at when imposing this sentence, as set forth in 4035-210B. Of course, I've carefully considered the evidence from the sentencing hearing, which included the pre-sentencing report. I've listened carefully to the argument of counsel. Of course, I'm very familiar with the nature and characteristics of the criminal conduct of which Mr. Paschel has been convicted in this case.
Do you want to speak first?
Sure. I don't know if I was surprised or not that he spoke or allocuted, but I'm not going to now. Not surprised because he'll take any opportunity to give a performance, but it was very difficult to watch that because there was not one drop of sincerity, honesty at all. Like, I respect Miss Chapman and Miss Moon. I mean, anybody who has watched him for the year and a half on social media, go take a peek back at all his YouTube videos. Ask me if there's respect for his exes and those. I'm a 40. I have a lot of love left to give. Like, it was just like, where was his attorney on that one? Should have told him to sit his ass down and shut up. But yeah, rehab is a form of punishment. Like, no, that's what addicts think when they get forced, they have to go to rehab, that they're being punished. Like, no, that's not how it works. And please have mercy on my children. That really set me off, because it's like, you want the judge to have mercy on your children, but you've had no mercy on your own children, doing this, going on 90 Day Fiancé, knowing the history that he has, pitching to Court TV to have them come film this trial. Like, you have mercy on your own damn kids. Sorry. But yeah, it was just all bullshit. So I guess, at the end of the day, if I was in the same position, sure, I'd probably get up and give him, wing it and give it my best shot at, making some emotions turn. But no, it was awful. That was disgusting. Like the judge said, it was insulting. It was offensive. But again, look at who we're talking about. Did not expect one thing less than that.
So my take on this is, and I've seen a lot of people during sentencing where they allocate, there's a sense of remorse. There's an apology given to the victims, if there are victims. And there is also a statement of, I can do and will do better. I didn't see any of that in this allocation. What I saw was, hey, look at me, I'm the victim. I have a lot of love and hope and dreams in my future. And, I've already been punished, he thinks in his mind, and he's already broken, meaning that he didn't think that they were going to come to this conclusion. He didn't think that he was going to spend any time in jail. And if you guys remember, we talked about it at the top of our show, is that prior to all of this coming out, the state did offer him a few plea deals. And one of those plea deals was he just had to admit to what he had done, and he would have served no prison time. Another one was he would have to admit and serve less than a year. There was like probation or parole or whatever you want to call it involved. And he turned those down. And he turned those down because his pride thought that between being charismatic and good looking, quote unquote, a single white male in America, that he would be able to get away with anything and everything that he thought he could get away with. And he thought he could charm his way out of all of this, and then it would go away. And I encourage you guys to remember that prior to the trial starting back late last year, he was gallivanting across the US on holiday. He was, in Florida. He was in Vegas. He was all across the place doing like wine tasting and beer tasting and all of the things. Someone even told me that he was like getting Botox so he would look good for TV, all the things, and he wasn't taking it seriously. And fast forward, to, again, February 2022, to his sentencing. He's had some time behind bars now, months and months behind bars. And he had time to think about remorse, regret, his history of violence, both verbally and mentally and physically. And yet he stood up and made it about himself. He has a lot of love to give still. He has hopes and dreams. He has been punished enough and broken enough. And no lookout to his victims, no lookout to his multiple children who are having to deal with this. And if you go back to his social media, a few of his older sons jumped on his social media in order to like raise money for him, to plead to the public that this is not the dad that they know, all the things. And we also learned in the trial that he used his mom and his children to try to influence some of the witnesses that were going to be there today. So all of that to say, when we talk about domestic violence, it's not just about the physical, the mental abuse. It's also about the manipulation. It's about the power, and it's about the control and controlling that entire situation. And that's what we're seeing play out, in my personal opinion. I do want to talk about the fact where he said rehab is a form of punishment. Rehab is a form. Listen, y'all. It's only punishment if you don't actually want to be rehabilitated.
Yep. That's what I was getting at.
That's it. That's all. If you don't see you're the problem, if B, you don't see what the problem is, then yeah, rehab is punishment because it's forcing you to reflect on your own inner issues. It's punishment. But if you think you've done nothing wrong, then yeah, it's punishment. But if you acknowledge that, hey, you know what, I'm the person that's in the wrong, and I need to deal with my issues, then guess what? Rehab is exactly what that is. It's rehabilitating the way you act, the way you function in order to move forward, like he said, as a better, productive citizen. Period. Let's go on to another clip. Shelby, I don't know why I keep doing that. Hold on.
Tennessee, the defendant is given an opportunity to address the court. It's called allocution.
I think we played this one, so it's not this one. My bad. Hold on. Oh. Hold on, Kristen, 1 second. I hope it's this one.
Mr. Paschel, like every human being, has good aspects, and he has some aspects here that we have seen that have been exposed that are very dark and are really evil. I know that I ruled that the letters of support are not properly in the record. I stand by that ruling. But I'm not surprised that Mr. Paschel be able to convince friends, family, fellow citizens that he's a good guy, that he's an upstanding citizen. He's a handsome guy. He's charismatic. He has a job. He's also very image conscious. I'm not surprised at all that he projects an image outwardly to the world that he is this type of person. What we have seen here and what has been exposed in this trial is that what is going on behind closed doors is much different than the image that Mr. Paschel projects out to the rest of the world. As I've stated, this behavior towards these women is sick, it is sadistic, it goes beyond a desire to inflict physical harm on these women. It speaks of a deep psychological issue, I think, that Mr. Paschel has a desire to inflict as much emotional damage to these women as possible. The fact that he traveled to the state of Florida to sneak in the back door of Miss Moon's parents' home uninvited, engaged in aggressive sexual behavior following that intrusion. I think the record shows here that Mr. Paschel is manipulative, that he thinks, hey, just let me talk my way out of this. He thinks he can do that. I'm deeply concerned that he, after being found guilty, while in custody, was attempting to have a third party go see Miss Chapman, again, unsolicited, at her home, in direct contravention of any order that this court has given him regarding contacting the victim in this case. And not only that, he was willing to use his children as a pawn in this illicit scheme to try to convince Miss Chapman to come in here and speak on his behalf. That's disgusting, and he should be disgusted by that behavior. This court is. Mr. Paschel, sir, if you please stand. Geoffrey Ian Paschel in docket 116806, the jury having found you guilty in count 1 of aggravated kidnapping, a Class B felony. For the reasons stated, the court finds that the appropriate sentence in this case is 18 years to serve. You're a range 2 offender. This, of course, will be a 100% service rate. As to the misdemeanor counts in 2 and 3, the appropriate sentence in those will be 11 months, 29 days to serve. Those will run concurrently with the aggravated kidnapping in count 1. The pleas will be incorporated into the judgment, or pardon me, the jury's verdict will be incorporated into the judgment, and judgment will enter at this time. The cost, of course, will be assessed in this case, and judgment orders will follow. Can we go ahead and pick a motion for new trial date?
Yes.
I like how he's trying to ask Geoffrey what day works for him. Can you check yourself, please?
I'll go a little ways out past the 30 days. Could we set it on March the 6th?
All right, we talked about that. It's going to be in April, I think the 14th or 15th. Shelby, the sentencing, your thoughts?
Well, first let me say that we didn't get to see everything that the judge said to Geoffrey in that closing statement, which I'm a little upset about because we missed that the judge called him out for monetizing the trial through social media and all of that, and dragging all of his exes' names through the mud. He said some other things, but I'm drawing a blank on them. I was told directly by people that were in there. But anyway, I thought that Judge Hickson had him pegged totally perfectly. He if my dog starts barking, he's getting a little moody. He had him so down, and if you watch, and I wasn't really paying attention, I guess, when I first watched it the first time, I was just taking it all in. But Geoffrey doesn't even look at him the entire time, just staring this way, purposefully. It's just so arrogant and rude, you know? And then the smile when he says 18 years, like that right there is, I believe, what Judge Hickson is talking about. That outward appearance, that image control, and this deep desire to inflict, like he said, not just physical pain. I believe he likes to inflict the emotional trauma on people more than the physical. I mean, he takes joy in it. He takes pleasure in it. Even back then, like the people whose DMs he would go into, a lot of people were starting to post like these really old, you know, DM conversations with him. And I don't know. I was very grateful for Judge Hickson. I was grateful that he was like, you know, this is enough. I was grateful that he called him out like that publicly. And I just think he had it nailed down. And the sentencing, I was a little upset at first when I heard that the state only wanted 16 years. You know, I thought, you know, that they were going for 20. So I was a little nervous at that. And then I thought Judge Hickson chose an appropriate amount of time. I mean, he could have given him 20. He could have given him more than 20. You know what I mean? But he gave him 18. And it was deserved. And like you said earlier, all the things he's been caught for, but all of the times he has abused these women and other women that he has not been caught for. Like, this felt like justice, not just for Kristen, but like, and someone else said it to me today. One victim's justice is a justice for all victims, you know, of domestic violence. So it felt, not just because I have a personal connection with him, but as a victim of domestic violence that did not get justice in my situation, it felt very victorious in that sense, I guess. But whenever we're going to talk about that video with his kids, I'm looking forward to that part.
Yeah. So I will say this, that I think that what's important to remember, especially in the 90-Day Fiancé fandom, is that just like the judge said, it's easy to convince people that you're charming, that you're handsome, that you're a good guy, you have a job, all of these things. But we have to remember all the things that he's doing behind the screens, behind closed doors. The fact that he, you know, went to Florida to his ex-wife's family's house and tried to intimidate her. The fact that he used his children and his mom, which we didn't see in that clip, to try to convince Miss Chapman to change her testimony, and to try to convince other witnesses to change their testimony, to say, hey, this is this great guy. You know, he's great. He doesn't deserve this. The fact that when we saw him, not only when he was allocuting, but when the sentencing was being delivered, that his body language, he completely turned his back on the judge. That's all part of DV, because at the end of the day, when I've told you over and over again during this stream that it's about power and control. And guess what? Geoffrey has been in power and control over the women in his life, the children in his life, the people in his life for very long. Now he's in a situation where there's a judge who has the ultimate power over him, and he's not feeling it. He's not feeling it. It's just like victims of rape. Rape is not about the sex. It's about the power and control. Domestic violence is about the power and control, and taking that away from the individual. And so he wasn't trying to hear it. So if you watch his body language when he's turning away and he's looking, it's almost like he's looking at his people. He's looking at his supporters, and he's not paying attention to what the actual sentence is. And I watched the trial in its entirety. Even when he was taking notes, he's handcuffed, but he's taking notes. He's also yelling at his lawyer when he's not liking what he's hearing, when he is paying attention. All of that is power and control, because guess what? In this situation, he didn't have the power and he didn't have the control. The last thing I wanted to say, I wanted to remind you guys that in all of this, I want you to look at the bigger picture. And remember that he got convicted by, a jury of his peers. This was not a separate trial like a lot of people have been messaging me about. This was his sentencing hearing. And in America, sentencing hearings, you're allowed to have witnesses. You're allowed to have both the opposition and the defense come and say, these are the facts of the case according to how I see it, and present everything to the judge again, in order for the judge to have, like I want you guys to have, a full understanding of the situation. That being said, before we get into this last part, Shelby, because I know that we've gone a little bit longer than last time, I think it's important for us to address a couple of things. But before we do that, I do want to, where is it? Please hold the line while I look for it. I hope I didn't delete it.
While you're looking for that,
Yep.
not only was he having his mom telling his mom to take his kids over to Kristen's house, he passed around my cell phone number.
To whom?
In the jail, to the inmates. I've gotten many messages, phone calls, video chats, and all of that from inmates that say, they got my number from their dog in there, and he said I'd be willing to converse with them and have conversation and chat with them. And
wow, how do you feel about that? How did that make you feel?
Scared, obviously, that he from in there could still have means to abuse us, and then I was on a mission to catch him, like screen record my phone when the video calls came in and stuff like that. And then eventually I just called the jail, and I needed to know for myself if this was, I knew it was true. I mean, how else would these men have gotten my number? And I asked if there was any chance that the three men and Geoffrey would have ever crossed paths. And they said there's no question they would cross paths. They live in the same pod. So, we'll see what happens now that, he's sentenced.
I'm sorry that happened to you.
Thanks.
Everyone in the live chat is saying the same thing. We're sorry that happened to you. So we're going to talk about Varia very briefly, but I do want to address the questions that are nonstop in the live chat. A lot of people want to know how Varia is still staying in the country if she's not indeed married to Geoffrey.
She won the green card lottery back in 2020. I said this back then. I've maintained this since going public or all this came out. She won the green card lottery. That's why she's here over a year. They're not married. She doesn't need him to stay here. Now, she said something about paperwork and all that kind of stuff. So maybe her citizenship paperwork or whatever going through is being held up, or there's something wrong with that. But she has a green card. 150% she has a green card. There's no question. This whole, she can't work because she doesn't have a work beat, this, that, and the other. Like, no, it's all a crock of crap. She has a green card. I guess you need citizenship to work in the U.S. I don't really know how that works. I don't want to sound ignorant, but with the green card, can you work?
Yeah, so I'm an immigrant. You can work with a green card. You don't need citizenship. As long as you have your green card, which is indeed your work permit, you can work in America. You can't vote, but you can work. You're a tax-paying citizen, and after X amount of time, you can apply for your citizenship if you behave and act accordingly on your green card. So that's the case. So that's what I've heard. I didn't know that I find it interesting that she won the lotto, because the United States government winning that green card lottery is like winning $10 million in the lotto. It's very few and far between. So I really just find it hard to believe. But if indeed she won the lotto, she won the lotto, and she's here. She has a green card. Dopey Dope, I just want to thank you really quickly for your support and the super sticker. people want to know about Geoffrey's parents. I don't know anything about it, but I'm going to pop up some comments. Someone said, hold on.
I saw one about his siblings.
Lori said, what are Geoffrey's parents like?
I've never met his mother, but his father I've met multiple times, every time I went to visit, although he told me it was not his father.
That's weird.
Yeah, well, his father, Bobby Paschel, is a convicted sex offender and on the registry for a sexual act with under 13.
So Tammy in the comments said, Lori, his dad is a convicted child predator. And the brother robbed a bank while wearing a motorcycle helmet. It's a family tradition, you might say. So would you say that that's accurate?
Both true. You can Google his brother, Nicholas Paschel. He robbed a bank in a motorcycle helmet. And yes, his father, Bobby Paschel. I mean, it's been all over meme blog pages. And honestly, I don't give a shit about saying, pardon my language, about saying this, because I don't mess around with, child molesters at all. Not that I'm, anybody, but yeah. So his father, that's public record. I mean, he's on the sex offender registry, so that's there. And his brother was all over the news. So, and he has another brother. I think his name Ryan. I think he has 3 brothers. So Nick, or there's 4. Yeah, there's 4 of them. So there's Nick, there's Geoffrey, there's Ryan. And I met Ryan multiple times. Don't know about anything criminal history with Ryan. I do know that he has a TBI that he sustained from an accident in the last couple years. So, he told me he was not his father. Although when this gentleman called his phone, it came up as dad, and he would say dad. And then when I mentioned something later about your father, he was like, oh, that's not my father. He's like, I just called him that. And I'm like, okay. And then it wasn't until I saw a post on, social media with his sex offender registry photo that I was like, okay, no, that's really his dad.
So his dad's a sex offender. One of his brothers has been convicted of robbery. Another one has TBI.
I think there's one other.
Okay.
I mean, there's 4 of them from what I believe and understand, but I don't know that I know anything about the 4th.
Now, Patty's asking, she's stating that his mom online seemed aloof, but probably a big defender. Anyone know if he even had a father present? Well, we talked about the father part. Do we know anything, Shelby, about his mom?
Yeah. I'm not a parent, so I guess I can't say what I would do if my child, I would, and I could say, I would not, whatever, but no, she is a strong believer that Geoffrey, no, let me say this, let me clarify that. She knows Geoffrey did this stuff. There's no question. She knows that he did, because she even asked one of his exes, like I said, to write a letter of support. And then when this ex said no, she said to her, well, you're not going to, hurt his case by, saying anything, are you? So his mother knows who he is, what he's done, all of that. And yet she still won. And we didn't get to see this, but you could kind of hear the audio during the sentencing, but it was really very not clear. There was an actual jailhouse video call that was recorded between Geoffrey and his mother of him telling her to take the kids to Kristen's house unsolicited, and all of that. So this wasn't hearsay. This wasn't told by Kristen to the state. No, this was literally a recorded call that they caught.
Yeah.
So, and his mother was willing to do that. And like I said, she asked his exes that she knows he has abused to write letters on his behalf.
Yeah.
She is ruthless. She's no shame, but that pretty much goes for par for the course for that entire seating section. So thank goodness, yes, I didn't have kids with him. He tried.
All right, let's talk about this real quick.
Okay. So he has his other brother is Chris. He works at a government job in DC, a total prick, but fairly normal as far as the rest goes.
All right. Varia, in response to the sentencing the other day, not only did a reel, and again, a lot of people came to me. I want to explain how reels work, especially on Instagram. If you are a content creator, if you are a verified blue check member, if you have a specific number of followers, Instagram will pay you for posting reels. And that's why you're seeing a lot more reels by influencers and content creators. That being said, Varia posted this reel, and I don't have the actual reel. I only took a screenshot of it, of her with a cake, with the candle that it has a 5 on it, and her caption to this reel that she's monetizing and making money on is sweet baby boy Chasm would have celebrated his 5th birthday today with the birthday cake emoji. Thank you at Jersey_Christina for this wonderful cake. He and his dad would absolutely love it. Unfortunately, neither of them got to taste it. To be honest, we didn't expect much from the sentencing. 18 years, ? All right, we passed the bottom. That means there's only one way up. The grounds for the appeal become even stronger. Kristen, do you want to talk about this?
It's funny because if you go to the end, was that where I wrote it? I don't remember where I wrote it, but I predicted exactly this was going to happen. I said, sentencing would happen. I predicted she'd post something from the parking lot immediately afterwards, but I said, and then later she'll post some sort of reel involving Geoffrey or his son to make money. And here it was. So not surprised, totally expected. I don't even know the right word to describe how repulsive and disgusting it is. Not only, so she's posted, I think, 2 other reels involving Chasm decorating his grave site. Also with things sent in by this Jersey Christina person, who is a diehard, Geoffrey supporter, but never met him in person, and I'm sure wrote one of those letters. But Varia has posted more at Chasm's gravesite than Geoffrey did. She has posted more about that child than he has. So the fact that she is, and then the whole mood of this reel, right? She's rolling her eyes, looking up to the sky, putting out the flame, but then the music that it was set to was like this techno beat. It was just so, I don't know. It just seemed like it was just very, none of it made sense. None of it tied together. It was just all very odd. And it was exactly what she wanted, which was she knew it would draw attention. She knew everybody would be looking for what she was going to say after the trial. And it did exactly that. Go look at the number of views, you know what I mean, that it has on it. Over 200,000. So, and I say that, and then also say with what the judge said that we didn't get to hear, like I said, was calling Geoffrey out on monetizing this trial. Well, she's now continuing to do it. He's in jail, and she's out here monetizing it, monetizing off the trauma and abuse that he caused to Kristen, to Allison, all of that. And she's never met Chasm. No clue. And she's sitting here offering up his birthday cake. My heart went out to Brittany, his mother, Brittany's mother, who not only Chasm's buried in Tennessee, right around the corner from Geoffrey's house. So she doesn't get to go visit her son, nothing, because like I said, she fled the country and turned herself in because she was in the US illegally, turned herself in at the border knowing that she would be locked out of the US for however long. And Geoffrey at that time was not allowed to go into Canada. That's how terrified this woman was. So she was willing to lock herself out of a country to get away from him. And now she can't come in the US, and her son is, you know, sitting in a state with nobody to go visit him besides this, you know, this woman. And the only time she gets to see Chasm's grave is when Varia posts something. So I think it's gross. The next reel she posted, she even said in the reel, like, thank you all for putting money in my pocket. You know, so
yeah, she was thanking her haters.
Yeah, thank you,
You
haters.
can hate me or not hate me. You watch the reel. The fact that you watch the reel, because they don't even have to comment. They watch the reel. She gets paid, and the more watches she gets, the more money she makes.
Yeah.
And that's all she cares about. And I will say this: in no way, shape, or form. And again, I'm not a mom yet, but I will say this: in no shape, way, or form do I think that Varia, who's never met Chasm, it was before her time with Geoffrey, should then go on social media and capitalize and monetize on the loss of someone else's child. Can you imagine, because it's the quote unquote birthday of the child you lost, that some other random woman is not only capitalizing and monetizing on your loss, but also minimizing the fact that your ex was just convicted of domestic abuse. And we've talked about it throughout the show that just because he got caught now doesn't mean it was the first time. And we know he was sentenced as a multiple habitual offender. And I just think it's in poor taste. I think it's not sensitive of all the victims, of the mom, of the child. I think it's just in poor taste that this is what her statement was and this is what she decided to do. You know, I can't fault people for wanting to make money, but you guys, you have to make it the right way. You have to stand by something. You have to believe in something. And you can't, and I know people do it all the time. I just have a hard time with it. You can't just capitalize on whatever you want to capitalize, especially when it's not your story to tell. This is not her story to tell. It's not for her to get a cake and put music behind it and look up to the sky like you're celebrating a child that you never knew that passed away. It's just all not okay. In my opinion, it's just all not okay.
And also to allude to the fact at the end that I guess it must have been raining in Tennessee, because she said the sky is still crying, and it's probably because a little boy is very upset. That's also, to me, that as well, because, you know, he tortured Brittany. I mean, I know what he did to her. She may have gotten, even Sabrina, who had it horrible, says that Brittany may have gotten the worst. But to then say that, imply that like this child is no longer here would be okay with what was happening, or that he would, you know, it was all not good. And I really wish that the only people that have the power to stop this is us. Is her viewer.
And that's why I wanted to talk to you, and I wanted to be methodical and make sure we covered all the topics. That's why, you know, our show is running so long, but it's important because this is a very important topic to me specifically. And I just think education is power. I do want to address Lori's question about why was Geoffrey not allowed in Canada. I can speak to that as a Canadian. If you are a felon, doesn't matter who you are. You can be ex-rapper who is an A-list celebrity, or, you know, the boy next door. If you have a felony and you are an American citizen or otherwise, you are not a Canadian citizen, they will not let you in Canada. I have had plenty of celebrities and musical performers that have wanted to come into Canada but have a criminal record. Canada says no. And even to the fact that if you have a DUI and you're not a Canadian citizen and you try to cross the border, you will not be allowed without a waiver of consent. So why was Geoffrey not allowed in Canada? Because we've been talking throughout this whole show, is that he is a multiple felon. Canada says no to felons, period. No criminal record. They don't want any of that business coming into Canada, period. That's why he couldn't come in. So I hope that answers your question. Tanya, same thing. Canada doesn't accept criminal records to my knowledge, and I'm confirming that to be true. I want to do one last thing before we wrap this up, Shelby, and I thank you so much for your time. I thank you so much for your vulnerability. I thank you so much for your honesty and directness. I think that every time we talk, I think that we are on the same page with we want to not only educate people, we want to talk about what's real and, talk about and debunk the myths about domestic violence. I'm going to go ahead and pop up your page, NDV Now. You guys make sure you're following that because she does an important work. As you guys know, when this all popped out, I did a fundraiser for domestic violence victims. And I think that if you have it in your heart and if you're led to do so, please reach out and do whatever you can, whether that's volunteering, whether that's bringing food to a shelter, whatever the case may be. If this speaks to you, go ahead and do something because like Shelby said, it's with us that change comes. I want to address one last thing before we wrap this up because I didn't address it. I wanted to talk about Mary also being in the courtroom because we know that Vario's in the courtroom. We know his mom was in the courtroom. One of his kids was in the courtroom. A neighbor was in the courtroom. We haven't talked about Mary. What do you know about Mary's situation? We know that, and I'll read the headline. And again, this is directly credited to Court TV. Court insider Mary Wallace, the defendant's ex-girlfriend, is being reprimanded by one of the courtroom deputies for talking to Paschel during testimony. She's been removed. My understanding from behind the scenes is that she was blowing kisses to him, Shelby, and talking to him. Any thoughts and any insight on that?
Yeah, I mean, she even went live from right outside the courtroom right after she was removed to relay to everybody why she was removed, and she was laughing, that it was like a joke. She was blowing him kisses. I mean, I don't, does there even need to be anything said about that? I mean, it's like people said themselves, you should be really proud of yourself. But she was proud that she got tossed out. And that is her demeanor, you're going to say something, say it to my effing face, which is what she said on her live too. You're going to call me the C word, say it to my face. It's her one and only warning. So she likes to bark a lot. She's not nice. She's a very cold person. Period. End of story. She's just nasty. And if you can't do anything for her, she doesn't want anything to do with you.
So I'm confused, Shelby. So she was there as a supporter of Geoffrey as his friend, because even with the court TV, they refer to her as an ex-girlfriend. And then we also know that Varia was there as an ex-girlfriend / fiancé. So I'm confused. Where did things stand
with those two?
With all three of them.
So Varia's living in his house.
Yeah, and taking care of his rental
properties, taking care of the dogs, which those dogs, I'll tell you, and if anybody wants to call Tennessee Animal Control, please do so, because those dogs do not have adequate warm housing like he says they do. They don't. I've been there. Anyway, Mary, I don't know that calling her the ex-girlfriend, I think they were just calling her that from what we saw on the show. I don't think they ever actually even dated for any period of time in the last decade that they've known each other. And a lot of people don't know this, but Mary met him in an anger management class. She was the instructor for the anger management class. And then they went on from there. So that's where she first met the guy. I think Mary is fame hungry too. Fame hungry. I think at the trial, she was there wearing this awfully ugly light neon shirt because it draws attention. And I wouldn't put it past her to get kicked out to get a headline like that. and wind up in Touch and all those, news sources. Because pretty much every time she's done something like flashy like this, she's wound up in the media. So she's out for herself too. And I think if you take a step back and look at all of this, like, they're not some loving, caring family like Ashley posted the other day. You've got Varia out of here who's trying to make money off her fiance that she loves, dead child, and her fiance who's currently in prison. So she's making money off him. And then you got Mary who's taking this opportunity to get in front of the camera. So they're all scratching each other's backs to try to, get ahead. There's no love there. There's no caring there. It's a whole sick dynamic. And Mary even said it, like, I think a couple months before the trial, she was done with Geoffrey. She'd never talked to him again. That whole incident happened at the Chili's where she got the whole story. It was on one of her lives. And then boom, she's in the courtroom at the trial. So I think they all thought that this was not going to be the outcome and that, they would carry on after this and be famous. And that's just not the case. So, yeah, it does keep getting worse and worse. Yeah, anger management class. Yep, absolutely. That I believe he was sent to for, I don't know this for a fact, but I believe it was something involving assault. So,
yeah. So, what city is his home in? He's in Knoxville, Tennessee, correct?
He's in Knoxville, Tennessee. He's specifically in Friendsville. He's in Blount County. Knoxville's in Knox County. So he's not technically in Knoxville. He is in Friendsville, or they refer it to Greenback. He's in like the woods of Knoxville.
Well, there you go. This has been very insightful, you guys. I hope that we were able to dispel some of the myths, to talk and walk you through the actual sentencing trial. And I appreciate you guys all being here. Shelby, specifically, I appreciate your time, your insight, your vulnerability, your knowledge, and all of the things. I do think that we've covered everything. Is there anything that you want to say that you feel like we haven't covered?
I don't think so. Just for anybody that's triggered by this situation, the sentencing, Varia's posting, anything, you're not alone. There's a lot of us out there, and like Linda put up, we gather on the NDV Now page. So you're not alone, and it's not crazy that you feel triggered, and it's not anything like that. And my domestic violent relationship was over 13 years ago, and I triggered like it was yesterday. Still am. So be kind to yourselves, and just know that you have support. And if anybody needs help, if they're in a situation, domestic violent or domestic situation, you can go to the hotline.org. They have a hotline you can call. They have a chat feature. So if you're not able to make a phone call, you can chat via your phone or the computer. I also have that link on my personal page. And there is help out there, and you will be believed. So I just want to say that.
Thank you, Shelby, so much. I just want to say, you guys, that we all go through a lot in life. And I think that as adults, we oftentimes don't think that we have a support system and a network of people, especially if you are going through DV, you're isolated, you feel alone, you feel scared, you have fear, all of that stuff. But just know that there are people that are there to support you when you're ready. And there's no right time and there's no wrong time. But know that in this era of social media, in this era of we're changing the narrative, in the era where we're calling out abuse as abuse, that more often than not, like I said earlier, someone can relate to you, someone understands you, someone will support you, and someone will help you through the ordeal. And so I encourage you to reach out however you can reach out. I know that there are, and I don't know where you're watching from, but I know that in cities there are restaurants and stores that you can walk into and say, I need help, and they can help you. We talked about the hotline.org. I will put out specifically and directly, you can reach out to me at any time, and I will help in any way I know possible and direct you to the right resources. I'm sure that Shelby feels the same. And again, I'll pop up her page that acts like a support group as well as resources available. But just know that you're not alone. And domestic violence is not just about women, it's about people in general. And violence can look like verbal abuse, it can look like physical abuse, it can look like mental abuse, and it can look like financial abuse. And so if you feel stuck, if you feel that you relate to that and you want out, know that we're all here for you. We know that there are resources. Know that especially here at the Melanated Way, we stand with victims and we want to help you through whatever it is that you're going through whenever you're ready to be free of it. That all being said, thank you guys so much for joining us. Shelby, again, I appreciate you. I thank you. And this has been fantastic, as usual.
I just want to say, and I know I said this privately to you, but I appreciate you very much for doing this and for being mission oriented, which is professional information, getting this out. Like, I know we've been here 2 hours and 45 minutes, but like, this is important stuff. And I just am very grateful that you did this with me. So thank you.
Thank you. Guys, thank you so much. We will see you next time. And you guys, please be safe. And like Shelby said, love on yourself, love on others, and just, remember that let's be a supportive community. Let's love on each other. There's enough hate and anger and hurt and trauma in the world that you can be the difference. You can be the change that you want to see. You can be the better person. And you don't have to troll. You don't have to say mean things. And even if you don't agree, guess what? Scroll past it. You don't have to take the extra 5 minutes in your time to be terrible to someone who's already in a terrible situation. All right, you guys, we'll see you next time. Bye for now.
Bye.